Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We will start the second chapter, that is traditional and contemporary issues and challenges in the management. Like, for example, when we talk about management, so management is a practice which is being done over the years, in the modern management have its roots in the late 18th. We will discuss these theories which are presented by different scholars and researchers one by one. First of all, we will discuss the classical management perspective, in which we have scientific management school of thought, administrative management school of thought, and in the second, we will discuss the behavioral management perspective, and third, we will see interactive perspective for managers, and the system perspective. So we will discuss these different aspects of a management school of thought in this chapter. The role of theory and history in management. For example, what is a theory? A theory is a conceptual framework for organizing knowledge and provide blueprint for action. That when we talk about theory, so a theory is actually a pinpoint certain things which actually give rise to certain pattern of behavior and certain results. So management theories are actually used to build organization and guide them onwards towards their goals. That how we have to organize people, how we can govern people within the organization, and how we can get work from the people in different organization setting. Management also develop and refine their own theories about how to run the organization and manage the behavior of employees. Obviously, these managerial theories have been developed by different scholars and researchers, and they actually help us that how in the organization we can manage the behavior of the employees who are working in the organization, and how we can get a best outcome from these people. When we talk about management, so actually management is something which was actually being practiced over the thousands of years ago, and we can trace back the traces of these managerial perspective from different angles of different civilizations. For example, if we look into summarize, they actually used written rules and regulation for their governance. Or if you can see the Egyptians, who have built huge pyramids and different other architectural ventures. So they use management practice to construct pyramids. If we look at the Babylonians, say they also use extensive sets of laws and policies for their governance. Or Greeks, it was also very civilized, very civilized culture. So they use different governing system for cities and states. And when the Romans, they used organized structure for communication and control. If we look to see Chinese, they use extensive organization structure for government agencies and art. Or Venetians used organization design and planning to concepts to control the seas. So all these civilization, which is actually from 3000 BC to 1500 AD, are actually, these are the civilization which are there, and they have used different managerial perspective in different ways and in different fields. So these we actually talk about the managerial process or perspective in the organizational setting or in the business environment. So first of all, there are three traditional management perspective. The first one is the classical management perspective. So these perspective actually are the ideas of early 20th century, and which these are provided by the theorists of these early 20th century. And actually this managerial theories are actually being developed with the development or emergence of large scale businesses and management practice. So this perspective actually includes two different viewpoints. One is scientific management, and the other one is administrative management. We will discuss these one by one. Scientific management, the scientific management is of a school of thought is actually being developed or given by Frederick Taylor, and their main emphasis is to improve the performance of individual workers. So they actually give ideas that how the manager can improve the work of individual workers. Frederick Taylor, who is actually the major contributor of this system, developed this system which he believed would lead to a more efficient and productive workforce. So this the type of workforce which he predict would give a very efficient and effective output. The idea of this actually comes with the with the expansion of large scale businesses in which capital was readily available, but there was a consistent labor shortages. So the productivity was the major problem is of that. So actually the Frederick Taylor was working as medieval steel company in Philadelphia, and he proposed this idea of developing employees or managing the employees in such a way that they can give you maximum output. But the main problem emerge with this kind of system is soldiering effect. That the soldiering effect is that the employees intentionally do slow work, or intentionally produce or do work slower than they can potentially do in order to support those workers who are not capable of doing work very speedily or more efficiently. So in this case the productivity would be declined because people are intentionally not putting their best effort in order to support their peers. Taylor's four steps in scientific management. First of all, they develop a science for each element of the job. That means that they develop a proper system or proper methods of doing certain kind of task, and replace the old rule of thumb methods. Secondly, they select their employees scientifically. That they have to, and they have analyzed they analyze that what persons are best in certain kind of activities, and they will going to select them, and after that they will train them, and that how they can perform that job very effectively and efficiently. The previous method was that previous practice was that workers were there to select their work, and they train themselves as best they could. So third thing is that once they chosen employees, train them, they make it certain that the employees follow those methods which are being prescribed by them to from their upper heads. And the last thing is that they divide all the work and responsibility almost equally among management and workers. Management takes overall work for which it is better fitted than the workers. Previous method was that that all the works and the greater part of the responsibility was thrown to the worker, but in this case the management the responsibilities was divided among managers and workers. So these are some major you can say points or major contributions of scientific school of thought. Second school of thought of classical management school of thought is administrative management. This when we talk about a scientific school of thought, it actually deals with the jobs of individual employees. They have major emphasis on improving the work of the individual employees, and how they can increase the productivity by improving the individual efficiency of the employees. But when we talk about administrative management, it focus on managing the total organization, that how they can improve the each and every element of the organization in order to get benefit from them. So it is more appropriate for stable and simple organization. than for today's dynamic and complex organizations, because it will give a very static kind of thing, and they actually suggest certain activities and certain patterns of behavior which should be adopted by the upper level manager in order to get maximum benefit from the organization workers. So the contribution to this approach include Henry Foyle, Mary Parker Follett, and Chester I. Bernard. The major this administrative school of thought is actually being given by Henry Foyles, and the major contribution of Henry Foyle is her 14 principles of management, and the majority of these are actually still prevalent in our current management systems. So first of all, division of labor. That means that they should so the employees should specialize in their work, and they have to divide the whole work into smaller component in order to specialize the employees in certain tasks, by making the employees more efficient and effective in their work. Second is authority. So my manager must be able to give orders. They should have the authorities, and this authority give them the rights along with authority. However, they should have to do certain responsibility as well, because an authority and the responsibility come with authority. When you have authority, you have to comply certain responsibility as well. Third one is discipline. That means that there should be discipline in the organization, that the employees must obey and respect the rules and orders which are being given by their higher ups in order to govern the organization. Fourth one is unity of command. That means that every employee should receive order from only one supervisor in order to avoid any confusion. This will help to streamline all the activities in a proper way. Fifth thing is unity of direction, that the organization should have only a single plan of action to guide manager and workers, and this plan should be of long run. That means that, and they communicated to each and every people within the organization to avoid any confusion. Sixth one is subordination of individual interest to the general interest. That means that the employees should be very honest to the organization, and if the one employees or group of employees should not keep precedence over the interest of the organization as a whole. That means that if certain things are beneficial for the individual employees or group of employees, or if they are, and it's harmful for the organization, so they should not take that, because they should take the organization as a whole, and they should think for the benefit for the whole organization. Seventh thing is the remuneration, that you should pay a fair pay to the workers, and they should get a full pay of their work which they have done. Then eighth thing is centralization. This term refers to degree to which subordinates are involved in decision making, and in centralization the degree of involvement of subordinate in the decision making is its minimum, because the whole authority is vested in the in the upper levels. Then scalar chain, that line of authority from top management to the lower rank is the scalar chain. That means that every employee is linked to the every employee is to link to the in certain ways to the its higher up, and there should be a clear chain of command. Then the same thing is order. People and material should be in right place at right time. 11th is their equity, that the manager should be very kind and fair to their subordinates. And the sustainability of tenure of a personnel, that means management should provide orderly personal planning and ensure that replacement are available to fill vacancies. That means that at any time when a person leave the job or any other kind of disaster happened, they should have a clear replacement and a readily replacement for that. Initiative means that employees who are allowed to originate and carry out plans will exert high level of effort. That means that the employees should have the we can say courage, or they can provide them with facilitate them that if they want to carry out certain plan in their own way. And spirited group means that there should be a team spirit between the people who are working, because working in the organization they should have a sense of collaboration and coordination, and the team spirit is should be there, because if that is there, so they can work in a very organized manner, in a very in a work and within our harmony, and the organization would have the higher benefit of this. Another contribution which is being given by Max Weber, he actually give a bureaucratic school of thought. He developed a theory of authority, structures, and relations, and basically he is. He actually identified that bureaucracy is an ideal type of organization, in which he identified that there should be a division of labor, and there should be a clear defined hierarchy and detailed rules and regulation, and there should be an impersonal relationships. That means that the positions are not being recognized by the people, but it should be recognized by the position, because humans are perishable, they can go come and go, but positions are still there. So this school of thought was given by Max Weber, and the major contribution given by Max Weber are as follows. That means that he thinks that a bureaucracy should have a division of labor. That means that jobs should be broken down into simpler routine and well definite tasks. So this is also given by Henry Foyle in his in administrative school of thought. Then the second thing he said that there should be authority and hierarchy. That means the position should be organized in a hierarchy way with a clear chain of command. That every position should be identified, and there should be a clear chain of command, that who is the supervisor and who is subordinate, and there should be clear chain of command. Third thing is a formal selection, that the people should be selected for a job based on their technical qualification, that whether they are suitable for that job or not. Then fourth thing is formal rules and regulation. That means that there should be a written systems, or written rules and regulations, and should be standard operating procedure for each and every activity which is being performed in the organization. Fifth thing is that there should be impersonality. That means there should be uniform application of rules and controls, no controls, and it should not be according to personalities. That means that if you are an owner of business, so you have to follow all the rules and regulation which are being drawn and which are there. Last thing is that there should be a career orientations, that managers are career professional, not owner of unit they manage. So they should do their work professionally, and they are not the owners of the unit of which they are head. They are only there to manage it properly. So all these things can help to organization to do its work more effectively and efficiently. Now, summing up the contribution of classical management perspective, first of all, we can see the general summary that classical management has two basic perspectives. First one is scientific management, which focused on individual employees within the organization, and they actually propose the ways which help to improve the performance of these employees, which furtherly impact on the productivity. The major contributor of this school of thought is Frederick Taylor, which can called as a pioneer scientific of this theory. Secondly, administrative management focus on total organization and the ways to which can help to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the organization. And the major contributor or pioneer of this school of thought is Henry Foyle, and he is given his 14 principle and his principles, which will, and also different functions of management, which will help to improve the productivity and efficiency and effectiveness of the overall organization. The major contribution is that these thoughts or these theories had laid the foundation for later development in management theory. They identified important management process, functions, and skill, which are still recognized today. And their main focus is on management and very subject of scientific inquiry. But there are certain limitations associated with this school of thought, that these are more appropriate for those organizations which are working in stable environment, and which are very simple, not very complex. But rather than when we see in today's environment, then the external environment is very dynamic, and we have very different and complex kind of organizational structure. And they often prescribe universal procedure which are not appropriate in some setting. Even though some writers were concerned with the human element, many views employees as a tool rather than a resource. That means that scientific school of thought is actually think human as a machines, or any other kind of input which can be very helpful in increasing the productivity of the organization. But they did not recognize, majority of them did not recognize the human or the behavioral or psychological perspective of employees. So these are the major limitation of the classical school of thought. After the classical management perspective, we will discuss the behavioral management perspective, which evolved after the development of classical management perspective. When we talk about classical management school of thought, they viewed organization jobs from a mechanistic point of view, as they conceptualize organization and machines and worker as cogs within those machines. That means that they think that the organization is a whole system, and workers are there in order there to do work efficiently and effectively in order to to ascertain the smooth running of that system. So they also were also think humans as machine, and the psychological and behavioral perspective of humans are ignored in a classical school of thought. So unlike the classical management perspective, when we talk about behavior management perspective, it placed more emphasis on individual attitudes and behaviors, and also on the group behavior and processes, and recognize the importance of behavior processes in the workplace. As every human have their own characteristic, every person have their own capabilities and behavior, and so based upon that, the organization environment can be accommodated for each and every person's according to each and every person's behavior. And also this school of thought emphasize that group behavior is very important, because it creates an environment of coordination and cooperation among the employees, which later on will be very helpful in achieving the success in organization. So first of all, first contribution to this system is organization behavior. That means it is actually the study of the people at work, how they behave and how they can be best collaborated, and best how the organization can get work from them very effectively. So early advocates are in late 1800s and early 1900s. They believe that people were the most important asset of the organization. Obviously, the assets are those things which will be very helpful in, and which will provide the financial and other benefits to the organization. So they think that humans are also asset, and they are very valuable for the organization. And provide ideas that basis for a variety of human resource management programs, like employee selection and employees motivation. When human behavior is actually very complex, and when we talk about human behavior within the organization, so it's very complex. So the field of organization behavior is actually being derived from different disciplines, or you can say it's an interdisciplinary subject, and its bases are from psychology, sociology, anthropology, economics, and medicine. Psychology actually is a study of human brain and different aspects of the behavior of the humans, and sociology is actually a study of societies. Anthropology is the study of different cultures and old cultures as well. And economics is actually the study in which the human can how we can use our scarce resources to fulfill our unlimited wants and needs. And medicine obviously is the study of human and living beings. So all these things are being human, this organization behavior is derived from all these branches of studies. Now, early advocates of organization behavior are Robert Owen, which is in 1700s, Hugo Munsterberg is in early 1900, Mary Parker Follett in early 1900, and Chester Bernard in 1930s. So these are the main contributors of organization behavior discipline. First of all, we will discuss about Robert Owen and its contribution. So he actually is concerned about deplorable working conditions. That means at that point, when we talk about in 1917, so obviously it was a time when humans were not treated um, as fairly as are today. So at that time, the working conditions were not very good. So he pinpointed that the working conditions are very deplorable and are not appropriate. So he actually proposed an idealistic workplace in which the workers can work effectively. He argued that money spent improving labor was smart investment, because obviously when this money is spent on labor, so they would be actually, if we consider human as asset, so obviously they'll work very hard, and they will provide more benefit to the organization. Hugo Mensterberg actually he created the field of industrial psychology, which is a scientific study of people at work. He suggested that using psychological tests for employees selection, learning theory concept for employee training, and study of human behavior for employee motivation. So obviously this is a very practical approach, and it is also you can say basis for modern management concepts. So after that, Mary Parker Follett, which is one of the first to recognize that organization should be viewed from the perspective of individual and group behavior. So he proposed that a group behavior, if actually is very important, because it will create an environment of coordination, cooperation. And he proposed that more people-oriented ideas than scientific management followers. Third, organization should be based on group ethic, that there should be an atmosphere in which group behavior should be encouraged. And after that, the Chester Bernard in 1930s, he proposed that actual manager who thought organization were social system that require cooperation. And he also believed that manager job was to communicate and stimulate employees high level of effort. And also he is the first to argue that organization were an open system. That means the open system means that that they have to learn from its external environment, and they have to keep their organization open for any profitable changes, or you can say any changes in the external environment which have an impact on them. For example, technological changes and customer taste. So it should be an open system, and they should adopt new trends and new trends which will help to improve the organization performance.